Welcome to Multiple Offers, a real estate show with competing perspectives. Today we have a very special episode for you. Last week we talked about the market in New West and what was going on. If you want to go back and find it, it is called A New West Side Story. We are following that up today. We are going to be taking a deep dive looking at New West neighborhood by neighborhood. If you've been thinking about moving here, this is going to give you a great idea of where you want to live. And if you are a longtime resident of New West, you are going to have an excellent picture of who your prospective buyers are.
Put that coffee down.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
How'd you get the gig? Oh, you know, they were hiring. It was only a 2-week course.
I will sell this house today.
What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
Oh, he's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
All right, episode 8. I am Jeff McLennan. I'm here with Jeremy Ray and some other guy.
Oh, man, come on. Say my name, Jeff. Say my name.
Named Matt Bravins. We are with Remax Advantage, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive on New West neighborhood by neighborhood. Before we get into that, though, what's been going on, guys?
I don't know. No.
You don't know what's going on?
I think we mentioned this last week, and maybe we should be listening to the previous episodes, but negotiated an offer over like a week or so.
Ooh.
Yeah. Accepted.
Negotiating is back.
Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure we just talked about this last
we
week.
talked a little bit.
Yeah. But still amazing news.
Yeah. Feels
very,
good.
Very excited. Yeah, it feels great.
Without getting into it in too much detail, I will mention that we're getting the vibe that my prediction that our little blip on condo activity is already moving in a positive direction.
Specifically about days on market?
Yeah.
Well, just that it wasn't, the lull was a short, temporary
So you're
lull.
saying so far you think condo activity is picking up?
Yes, it's improving.
Okay.
And we won't get into it a ton, but it's just that, you know, I've just got this vibe that I felt like it was going to be short-lived, and I think it was.
You're planting your flag. You think you're on pace. I'm going to be buying Jeremy lunches.
I was going to say, do you have your lunch place picked out already?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to Gotham for lunch. What?
It's a long drive. I'll skip it.
What's going on with Matt?
No, Matt, it's so good.
You know what I've actually been spending a fair amount of time doing this week? Jeff's usually our advertising guy for the show, but I've been doing a few more of the ads.
Yeah, you've done some good ads.
Yeah, and it's really rewarding, and it's just great to have new listeners. But it's been really good. I think we're getting out there on different platforms. Jeff's totally an Apple guy, and I don't know why. When Jeff runs ads, all of our users are Apple users.
I don't know why that happens either, too, because I'm not specifying iOS.
And then I'm an Android guy. And
us Apple users just connect on some strange psychic level.
Something going on in the back end with your ones and your zeros. And then I managed to attract some new Android users.
Weird.
Yeah. I mean, I did present the podcast in a different format.
Yeah.
Where if you clicked on it, you had, I think, more options in terms of how to listen.
So to the Android user out there, thank you.
Yeah.
So the ads I've been running have sent people to either iTunes, Google Play, or directly to us, our page on Podbean.
Yeah.
And you're going...
I'm using a link that was created by Podbean that when you go into it, it says, like, here, listen to it directly or download the app. It says iOS or Android. And I think maybe if you're an Android user... that just appeals to you. Go in and, I mean, same with iOS users, but maybe there was something in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I prefer the psychic projections theory.
Yeah, but we're always looking for feedback from our listeners, and if you guys have any opinions on this, on our ads or how we're presenting it, and you think we can improve it and maybe help more people who you think should be hearing the show, and some ideas, let us know.
And 360 video coming soon.
Whoa!
Oh yeah, we got some exciting new tech, but let's
3D.
Let's
no,
save
360.
That. 360.
360.
Yeah. We'll mess around with that. I don't want to make any announcements until we actually can use the
It's
stuff.
here and charging, though.
It is here and charging. Yeah. So I had an interesting night last night. I had instructions from my buyer to remove subjects on a property we wrote on at 7 p.m. And then at 9 p.m., I got a phone call saying I would like to renegotiate based on the inspection report.
At 9?
At 9 p.m. So he sends me the...
When was your deadline to remove subjects?
That night. So I've got till midnight. And I was there for the inspection report. The clients were not. The exact words the inspector used were, great home, couple minor things, nothing worth freaking out about, was the inspector's comments to me. So I said to him, my buyer, like, okay, well, send me the stuff. Let's take a look at it. Because I hadn't sent in the subject removal yet. And he sends it in, and it's a one-page notes, like, baseboard is broken, and he couldn't test the fireplace because
the pilot light
was off, and some outside settling that it's a strata. It's not his responsibility. So I call, and it's funny how different people move at different paces, because they're out of town, the buyers. So I call, and he can't talk. So he's like, talk to my wife. So I talk to the wife, and she's like, Jeff, I have to call you back. I'm actually just sitting down to dinner. And I'm like, well, if you want me to renegotiate, like, we have 3 hours.
Yeah, so minus 60 to 90 minutes for dinner.
No, we're not waiting till dinner. And I felt bad. I snapped a little bit. And it was a total misunderstanding on their part, because when I was like, no, we have 3 hours. You need to eat dinner after we talk.
This should be your priority.
But, yeah.
You are buying a home.
They were like, oh, we have subject removals today? And I'm like, So, pro tip, which I did recommend to them as well, is if you're a buyer out there and you're booking your home inspection, I do recommend that you don't do it on subject removal day, because then you don't have time to negotiate. And I mean, we were able to get a handyman quote, and the guy was like, we're talking about like a few $100s worth of work. And once that got in perspective, everybody kind of calmed down and we went ahead. But these are not things you want to be thinking about when you have 3 hours left on your time limit.
Do you think there was like an outsider that came in and said, now that you have your inspection, you renegotiate? Like maybe someone kind of got that in their head?
It's possible. I think there was a misunderstanding. I think a lot of it was lost in translation because they weren't there for the inspection.
Right.
You know, the inspector sent them the report. They saw these things on the report, and they thought they were bigger than they actually turned out to be.
When all you get to look at is a written report, you start flipping through pages looking for the things that are noted.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that the really short list of things that have been noted is out of the ordinary. You have context to say that, hey, this is like amazing. This is A+.
Yeah.
This is better than new construction as far as the number of things that I've found.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So that's what's been going on with me.
What's going on?
Yeah, and this place this was a New West townhouse, one of the rare ones. Unless anybody else has got anything to say, why don't we get into neighborhoods? I think this is going to be a pretty fun topic.
But we're going to miss the news bumper.
I know it's sad. The news will be back.
So we're doing all neighborhoods today.
This is just...
We're skipping the news.
We're skipping the news.
We're skipping story time.
No story time with Jer. Question of the week will have to wait. If you have questions, send them to feedback@morealestateshow.com. And at the end of this episode, we're going to announce what type of questions, because we got something kind of cool for next episode too. But why don't I hold off on that and let's just get into neighborhood stuff.
Let's do it.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
You decide your own level of involvement.
Well, I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Neither do I.
Wrong.
National debt.
Wrong.
You're an advocate.
Wrong. With that money, lost one.
Very nice words, but happens to be wrong.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Okay, so neighborhood by neighborhood. Guys, where do we want to start?
By the river.
Where it all started.
Ooh. How's that working out for you, Matt? Being clever.
I actually always start with that to help people understand New West geography. They're
Right.
like, why isn't it on an east-west grid? What's going on here? And I'm like, it all started from the river and went up.
Right.
So it started parallel to the river.
We're simple river folk here in New West.
Yeah.
Just always have to be different.
Okay, so let's start.
The east-west thing and the we have avenues and streets that are both labeled by numbers, I think are the two things that throw people the most off, but who are coming to New West.
Considering how small New West is, it is so easy to get lost, turned around. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can't count the number of times I've had a friend not from New West call and be like, I'm here on 2nd Ave. And I'm like, no, I said 2nd Street. And they're like, Argh!
Did they just run out of names, though? Because they started Front, Columbia, I guess kind of Quayside, Carnarvon, Agnes, Royal.
Royal is
let's,
one.
Well, and
let's start with some numbers now.
Quayside would have came way later, right?
Right.
Like, because it's not as old. So that got added.
But it's like, it is like named streets. And then
yeah.
Well, the earliest,
at Royal, they're like,
the earliest
meh, numbers.
development of New West probably only went as far as Queens,
Yeah.
which is the equivalent of First, and then it started counting up from there. Who knows? We'll save the history lesson maybe for another episode.
Yeah.
But we're going to start with downtown and sort of the adjacent part of downtown waterfront as well, the Quay, which I think a lot of people who maybe are unfamiliar with New West are familiar with the Quay, and just downtown New West because the SkyTrain runs through there. It's just kind of, you can't miss it.
And we'll be clarifying to MLS boundaries, our kind of neighborhood boundaries.
Yeah, because there's the MLS boundaries, but there aren't. They're not necessarily how residents think of them, and some of them are like two different neighborhoods are kind of lumped into one MLS boundary, like the Heights, right? Massey and Victory Heights are two different neighborhoods, but on MLS it's just the Heights.
Sure.
So,
so the Quay is south of Columbia Street for MLS purposes.
Okay, well, that gets really complicated to our listeners. I mean, they understand the Quay as waterfront, which I guess if you say south of Columbia starts to make sense. But it's still... Okay, let's start from the beginning maybe.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a couple buildings that really aren't in the Quay that MLS thinks are in the Quay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
Begbie, Interurban,
yeah.
Traven Holbrook.
Yeah, but let's talk about the Quay.
Okay.
So, I guess how do we want to structure this? Because I feel like what the Quay was originally was a nice place to retire.
Yep. Expo 86 kind of era. First building, I think Quayside Tower 1 and 2 were around 88. I'm not mistaken. Probably should have fact-checked that one.
My gut tells me early 90s, but the low-rises started in the late 80s.
Yeah, but the first two towers are pre-90s.
Yeah, KDK was like 87 or 88, I think. But so let's try to position this for our listeners. Obviously, our people who live on the Quay and have been there for a while, they know exactly what it is. But for somebody who's thinking of coming into New West, Jeremy, you've talked about this before. We think of a lot of young people consider New West, and they start with downtown on their radar, but they don't really see downtown and the Quay as being much different from each other. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah. Geographically, because we're actually quite small here, right? So,
well, and I kind of think, and you guys might disagree with me on this, that as far as a new buyer is concerned, there's two, like the Quay can kind of be broken up into two different areas. There's like young people coming from Vancouver love the lofts in Marano. Mm-hmm. The Q, they kind of like the high-rise beside Marano. But a lot of the 90s stuff they're not as wild about. Like, I get a lot of people who specifically want to look at Marano. They don't want to look at the Quay. They want to look at those lofts that they have friends at that's walking distance to Steel and Oak, right? Like,
sure. And then you get the buyers that, because you've got a mix there, right? Sort of 90s buildings and then a couple that are a bit newer. So younger people, like the newer buildings. Primarily it was more, I guess, kind of retired people demographic wise down there, but all that's changing. People want proximity to SkyTrain.
Yeah.
All that definitely is changing.
Well, and the mall really helps. Like, how long ago did the mall go in now?
7 years ago.
Like, being able to enter right off the overpass, I think, has really improved.
Yeah, that
the Quay.
improved access to the Quay a ton, right? It felt a lot more connected to shops and SkyTrain and all that stuff.
And I guess the revitalization of the Quay itself, because there was a good chunk of years where that was just dead.
The River Market.
The River Market. Yeah.
New name for it. So for most people, they like the younger people coming from out of area, people within New West. They like the new buildings, like the lofts. The 90s eras, they're bigger. So that can really appeal to people that you're getting larger square footage. Now bedrooms or one bedrooms are 800 sort of plus one in dens.
Yeah, and that's why the Quay still today continues to appeal to downsizers.
Yeah, I think the Quay is the number one downsizer spot. Like somebody who's lived in New West a long time.
Yeah.
And they're selling a big house and they don't want to give up their space, and they've all and they get something, right? They get a view, they get walkability.
Well, yeah, you get to go walk on the boardwalk on the river, which is really nice to step out your door and have that lifestyle when you're spending more time around the house, right? And there's a ton of options at the Quay, from the big 1-bedroom that Jeremy mentioned to they have big 3-bedrooms. There's 1,500 square foot 3-bedrooms.
Oh yeah,
plenty on the Quay.
Those top floor Tiffany Shores ones. I mean, those feel bigger than some houses.
Yeah, they're over 2,000 square feet, some of them. So there's a lot of options there in the Quay, right? And then the funny thing is that when you move along the boardwalk towards New West SkyTrain Station, you think that you're out of the Quay because you've crossed the train tracks.
Right.
But according to MLS standards and boundaries, if you put in like downtown as my neighborhood to search for, or you won't get 3 of the essential new towers.
And I think that's a mistake. Like,
because that's downtown
Those
New
towers
West.
to me are downtown. They're not the Quay. Before we move from the Quay to downtown, though, let's talk about. You mentioned the train tracks.
Ooh,
how big of a factor is that at the Quay? Now,
everyone wants to know. Are they noisy?
The Quay. Jeremy's lived at the Quay.
Yeah.
I never heard them. I was on a low rise on the riverside. But I had vibrating lamps that when the trains would go by, I couldn't hear them, but I knew they were going by because my vibrating lamps would turn on and off.
Sorry, what?
When I lived down at the
What's a vibrating lamp?
Sorry, a vibrating lamp. Thank you. A touch lamp.
Oh, okay.
So I had touch lamps. The vibrations from the trains going by would cause the touch lamps to go on and off. I was young. I thought we had ghosts. And my mom had to explain, like, okay, go outside. There's a train going by. It's not a ghost.
Trains not going anywhere. Frequent questions. Are they loud?
Were there first.
What's the schedule? Like, they're done by 10 or so. They're kind of random times. Better now because of the whistle cessation program.
Yeah, but they still shunt.
And that's something for anyone who doesn't know New West. You're not avoiding trains. They wrap around the whole city.
You hear them everywhere. I hear them in my place.
Yeah, when I was living in the loft, quietest place I ever lived in, we were ground floor, but on the south side, so Riverside, super quiet.
When you're on the opposite side of the building to where the tracks are, it is a
sheltered
noticeable difference.
Good,
yeah.
When you literally face the tracks, it can be pretty intrusive. Now, it's infrequent, the intrusive part. The trains themselves passing by, I mean, sometimes they're moving along and you look out the window and you didn't know they were going by until you looked.
Yeah.
It's what you mentioned is shunting, and for people who don't know, that's when they're connecting 2 cars together.
Yeah.
And if you've never heard it in real life, you are pretty shocked the first time you hear it. You don't know what just happened.
Yeah. It depends on the operator too, because sometimes they're coming in hot and it's just like boom, so loud, and then other times they're able to do it quieter.
Yeah, it's a nice quiet sort of little ka-chunk. But there's, like Jared said, there's no schedule. They can be loud, they can be intrusive. If you're on the other side of the building, essentially river facing, you're paying a premium. You're paying a premium for a view, and you're paying a premium for a lot more serenity insulation from the trains.
Yep.
But then when you get into downtown New West, there are buildings that face the train tracks as well, and those are with the river view. Right. And then people seem to be able to ignore the trains because they have a river view.
Yep.
So if I'm a seller down at the Quay, I'm either looking, my potential buyer is probably somebody downsizing from a house, or if I've got new, like Murano or the Q, or maybe some of the newer kind of hip stuff, potentially first-time buyers. Is that safe to say? What should a seller know?
Fairly accurate. We still get a lot of people coming from Vancouver. We get people from New West that want to stay in New West.
Yeah.
Sell their house.
With the older buildings, I would say more than anywhere else in New West, how you decorate and how you renovate has a massive impact on who you're going to attract.
Yeah.
Because even in some of those older low-rise buildings or some of the older, concrete towers, if it's renovated in a way that is a lot more modern and it sort of suits the younger buyer, they seem to all of a sudden just look past everything else that they kept saying they didn't want to be in these buildings.
Right.
But they are the anomaly, right? So it's for sellers to look out for.
Okay.
Should we move across the street?
Downtown.
To the downtown. I didn't think we were going to have that much to say about the Quay, but...
Downtown's the hot spot.
SkyTrain, proximity.
SkyTrain.
The downtown buyer, in my mind, isn't thinking New West. They're thinking, how can I stay close to Vancouver?
Yeah.
Like, really, more like a lot of people want to live in New West. And there's obviously this is a gross generalization. There are people who move downtown that like New West, but there's a big chunk of people who I want to be on the SkyTrain. I want to be 20 minutes to downtown.
So you're saying downtown New West is a bedroom community?
I haven't... meaning they don't take part in the community? I don't know that term.
Oh, a bedroom community, because I grew up in Tsawwassen.
Okay.
Is they say that you go there to sleep, right? So you wake up in the morning, you do your stuff, you leave your home, you go off and do all your things, and you come home to go to bed.
Yes, I would say that for a large portion of people living downtown, that describes. And there's so much cool stuff happening downtown in New West.
Yeah, it's not like there's like a nightlife or anything too crazy. A couple good restaurants now, which is getting better.
Couple good restaurants.
One live music venue.
Yeah, well, and there's the Street Chuck Festival now. There's what was the festival where you could drink? You could walk around New West Nights? Or
that was Fridays on Front.
Yeah,
which
Fridays
are coming
on
back
Front.
in the next week or two. They're going to start up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a good vibe in downtown New West. It's improved a lot over the years, and people who want to just walk out their door and feel a vibe walking around and connect with stuff or go to different places, it absolutely works.
Well, and it's changed so much. Like, downtown New West, when I was a kid, was known for two things. It was known for wedding dresses and strip clubs. Like, that was what people outside of New West thought of downtown New West.
Yeah.
And most of the strip clubs have been gotten rid of at this point.
But you can still get a wedding dress.
There's still lots of wedding dresses, but it's not what it's known for anymore. Now it's this super fun area that you can walk around on, and there's no... Like, I think downtown has they've really managed to improve the area. Like, you kind of didn't want to go downtown unless you had a really specific reason to be there. Now there's always a reason to be there because of sandwiches.
Yeah, not to get too much into like the history, but Old New West, that was the main street.
Yeah.
That was where everything was happening. That was the place to be. And then I think it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, around the 60s or so, people started getting into malls and things like that. And then, yeah, people just weren't quite hanging out or doing the street.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of shopping and things like that. And so, yeah, it was kind of stagnant, not a lot happening, not a lot of new buildings. The Quay was the big new thing, new development. But now we're seeing developers are getting into it. You've got the Bozas.
But even when the towers came in the mid 2000s, you know, they're kind of taking a chance.
But yeah, totally.
Right. And that was definitely if you build it, they will come, a gentrification type thing. You know, putting three
towers
on top of New West Station changed everything.
The Plaza 88 was
but not right away. Like I remember they had a bit of time. Like, those didn't sell out when they first did, because they kind of went up right as the market was crashing, and there was a lot of worry about New West doesn't need this many people, and then. Sure enough, as the market came back and housing got more and more expensive, definitely for sure. And then again, that mall, I think, was massive.
Yeah. You know, so before it was downtown New West and people kind of got used to it, they were thinking Uptown.
Right.
Right, which is another sort of separate hub of high density.
You wouldn't want to be downtown. There wasn't any appeal to living in the downtown New West. The new downtown or the new urban hub was, but yeah, potentially Uptown, right?
Yeah, well, and New West for a long time had a real... reputation as being a place where there were young people who were in school and there were retirees. And Uptown for a long time really had that reputation of, like, there's that block on Princess behind the mall that's kind of a little unofficial retirement community in New West.
Yeah, that's fair. You know, and I think it's partly because of what Jeremy said, though, that, you know, Columbia Street was sort of this commercial district, and then the era of the malls came in.
Yeah.
And it's not even there now. This is before our generation, really. That was the Woodward site. And that was when that became sort of the hub of New West and commerce and all the rest of it. So that created all this density and development in Uptown New West.
Well, Woodward's now, and they may have moved it, but when I was a kid, Woodward's was Uptown.
That's what I mean.
Okay, so you're not saying down. You're saying because Woodward's was Uptown, nobody was going downtown.
Yeah, Woodward's was part of the creation of this new department store
stores,
malls that pulled people away from all the little mom and pop shops on a Columbia Street.
Well, and there were mom and pop shops in the mall. Like the mall really suffers now. But when I was a kid, that mall was thriving, and there were lots of little stores in there that, like, we'd go there all the time. It was great.
Yeah, so I mean, Uptown now is still a great community. It appeals to different people. So we got the people who we know it appeals to today. We talked about that as a certain section of it is an unofficial retirement community.
Yeah,
and then
because they can walk to everything, and also there's a bit of a cliqueiness to it. Like I've had buyers who are specifically like, all my friends are in 719 Princess. I only want that building.
You know what else? I don't. Maybe this doesn't come up with your clients, but when people talk to me about coming into New West or downsizing, and they're really aging, right? Mm-hmm. There's a ton of resources in Uptown.
Yes.
Essentially, every medical service you need is there.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And everything else you need from day-to-day lifestyle stuff. But the other part is, and I think people who aren't from New West know this, is New West is very hilly.
Yeah.
And Uptown is not.
Yeah.
It's flat. And that's really the only place where you can just settle in and not have to fight with going up or down a hill.
I think one of the biggest mistakes whoever planned New West made was when, and we'll get into Fraserview in a bit, but Fraserview is a giant hill, and all of those buildings were designed to be senior living. They were all age controlled when they were first introduced.
Age controlled, yeah, but careful, don't call it senior living.
Well, okay, so some of them are 55. Yeah, okay.
You're going to upset some of our listeners who are 21.
No, but they're not 21 and up.
There's
originally
19 plus.
I think now I could be mistaken. I don't think those ones were originally 19 plus. I think when it was originally designed, it was all supposed to be 55 and up, and then some of them have changed them. Although I could be mistaken on that. Either way, and let's pick an area where people can retire in New West.
Let's put them on a big hill.
Just one giant hill. Meanwhile, all the retirees are actually like, no, we're going to Uptown where it's flat and we have all our medical services and you can take an elevator from some of the buildings into the grocery store. Like, it's just bad planning.
Yeah, we'll work our way east over to Fraserview. So as far as Uptown, though, here's the funny, confusing part of Uptown. Is we're really making this differentiation from, downtown, which is kind of obviously Columbia Street and sort of a few adjacent streets running along the river. And you go up the hill, and naturally we kind of feel like once we hit Royal Avenue, we're out of downtown.
Yep.
And that is the end officially of downtown. But then Uptown starts.
Yeah.
And we still have a couple high rises that are in that sort of middle ground.
Yeah, and that's where things
Street.
are confusing because you're really used to Uptown being this little hub, right, sort of at the plateau there at the top of the hill. But everything in between is considered Uptown. But from a language perspective, you wouldn't think of that as being Uptown if you're on 3rd Avenue, for example, right?
No, the MLS considers it Uptown, but I don't think anybody who lives in New West thinks of those areas as Uptown.
Yeah, which gets very confusing when you're searching. If you're somebody
not
coming
from here,
into town,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
You're using language around these things. If you're trying to communicate with somebody to bring them in. So from a buyer's perspective, locally it's called the brow of the hill.
Yep.
Mostly, right? And the one place that stands out to Jeremy and I a lot is 121 10th Street. The 121 tells you it's pretty close to downtown.
Right.
But it technically crosses the border.
Yeah.
And if you're putting it on a search, it's considered an uptown tower, but it's a shorter walk to a SkyTrain than a lot of downtown towers.
Right.
Yeah, for the most part, Royal Avenue, you're 5 minutes from SkyTrain.
Yeah.
Ish.
Well, so now Discovery Reach, which is at the bottom of 12th and Royal. On MLS, is that Uptown?
I think so, yeah.
Because that does not feel like Uptown to me in the
especially
slightest.
since it's at like the same grade level as the Quay.
It's at the bottom. Well, as a kid, I used to
12
live there, and
12th,
I would walk to the SkyTrain, which is so quick to get from there to there.
And
Matt's looking it up.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
So, well, should we talk about? Should we get
Uptown
into some houses?
Yeah, I mean, and one sort of final thought on Uptown: pretty mixed, low-rise apartments, rental buildings, brow of the hill, which is kind of a new trendy word for a section of Uptown. The worker bees houses, like they're smaller. There's some older, there's some older.
What did you just say?
You have your fancy houses in Queen's Park.
Yeah.
And just like Brow of the Hill was kind of like Sapperton, where you had the worker people, smaller houses.
Yeah, I always liken it to like
1890s.
Before we had strata properties, before there were apartments, people bought the small house on the small lot.
Right.
That was the equivalent of today's 2-bedroom condo. And there are neighborhoods where that was more prevalent in New West, which is Brow of the Hill and Sapperton. That's where the worker bees got their houses.
I understand what you're
bees.
saying.
Okay.
I'm just finding your language hilarious.
You never heard worker bees?
Well, they're not worker bees who live there today.
Yeah.
No, because they're all $1 million plus houses now.
Yeah, no, I just have never... I have never used that language or heard it to describe. Maybe I'm out of the loop.
If the banker lived in Queen's Park, his employees would live in Sapperton or the brow of the hill.
Okay, well, why don't we shift over to houses a bit? And I think the area that everybody who isn't from New West has probably heard of in houses is Queen's Park, right? So what do we have to say about Queen's Park?
Overrated. Old houses. They need a lot of work. No garages. If you're into all that old stuff, old houses, and I'm being completely sarcastic. Just so much upkeep and maintenance, and
Nobody ever actually says that about Queen's Park.
No.
No.
But I call it as it is.
Okay.
So why is it that people from outside of New West know it so well?
And do they?
Good question.
Yes, 100%. Whenever I'm talking to somebody not from New West, and
Are they referring to the park or the neighborhood?
No, they're not referring to the park. Whenever I talk to somebody not from New West and I say that I'm a realtor from New West, I hear one of two statements. Either, oh, I love the Quay, or, oh, I love Queen's Park.
And that's where I bought my wedding dress.
No. Oh, yes. But usually we're talking real estate, so they bring up something real estate related. I think Queen's... What was Matt's question? Why does Queen's Park...
Why does everybody know it?
I think because it manages to have a completely different identity than the rest of New West. I mean, you're... Just even the way the streets are tree-lined, like it looks different than the rest of Queen's Park. You've got all these old, beautiful Victorian houses, which isn't everything in the park, but that's what people think of when they think of it. Jeremy brought up, I mean, Queen's Park rivals any park in the Lower Mainland, other than Stanley. Like it's fantastic. Yeah, and also for a very long time, I think, we've talked about the disappearing lines between the neighborhoods as people from outside of the city move in, but something people pay a ton of attention to is schools. And for years, Herbert Spencer and Glenbrooke North, so the elementary school and the middle school that Queen's Park feeds into, have had very, very good reputations.
And French immersion.
Yeah, I always get confused because when I was a kid, McBride was the French immersion, but Spencer is now, right?
Believe so, Matt.
Yeah, well, there's 3 French immersion schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tweedsmuir in the West End.
Yeah.
Keykite downtown New West.
Yeah.
And then Herbert Spencer. And McBride used to have French, and now I've lost track if it still does. But McBride, I know, started to take over a bigger share of the Montessori program, the elementary Montessori program. So I've actually had a hard time keeping track now that my kids are fully integrated in the school and they're settled in their places. But there's different options. But I feel like with Queen's Park, people did know about it, and it created this prestige, even for people who lived in New West, who would tell people they were from New West 15 years ago and be like, "Oh, New West," and you say, "Well, I live in Queen's Park," and then all of a sudden, you're thought of in a more positive light.
Is it like how people from South Surrey say they're from White Rock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you got it. And it probably even enhanced the perception of prestige that goes with living in Queen's Park. And the neighborhood, in a sense, deserves it because, like you said, it's got bigger, wider, more elegant streets, tree-lined streets, and then the houses themselves, the mix when you walk down the street. The reason why people know it is because people like to just walk the street. Mm-hmm. Just wander by and look at all these homes and take pictures.
My favorite thing to do at Christmas is to walk around and look at the houses in Queen's Park.
So for somebody who is thinking of moving to New West, and they're aware of Queen's Park, and they know that it's so fantastic, and they think to themselves, "Oh, if I were to move to New West, probably the only neighborhood I would want to buy a detached house is in Queen's Park."
Yeah,
is that sort of fair for them to come in with that? I mean, we're all New West people, so would you want to try to help give them a little more information to digest if that's their thought coming in?
Yeah, I mean, Queen's Park is lovely. We talked last episode, so we don't need to get into it again. You need to understand the heritage rules that are now in place. I do think you pay a huge premium to be in Queen's Park. And so if you're looking at it, there are other fantastic neighborhoods that, you can save a couple $100,000 on. I mean, I don't
know if there is a premium. Pound for pound, apples to apples, the same house in Glenbrooke North. Is it really $200,000 more?
Maybe not $200,000 for Glenbrooke North, but it is less.
Yeah, I feel like that line's gotten blurred.
It is hard to compare though too, because a lot of Glenbrooke has smaller homes. Not necessarily smaller lots, but the street doesn't have the same appeal.
Right.
But the homes are traditionally smaller. Not all of them, but they're more post-war bungalows.
Sure. And you used to have people that would buy their first sort of starter home in Glenbrooke North. And then the idea was to eventually kind of cross 6th Avenue.
Move 3 blocks over.
Glenbrooke North, for a lot of people, was, okay, I get a lot of the things that I want about Queen's Park without having to pay the Queen's Park price. Like if you care about school, Glenbrooke North feeds into all the exact same schools. If you want your kids to be able to walk to Queen's Park, they can do that from Glenbrooke North. It's easily walkable. It's a nice neighborhood. Like Glenbrooke North has a lot to offer, and you're not paying quite the same premium as Queen's Park. Now you don't get to say that you live in Queen's Park.
Womp womp.
I think that for me, as just looking at my family, Queen's Park or Glenbrooke, to me, I would choose either because for me, it's all about location.
Yeah.
As long as the house fit the needs for my family, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Because what I really like about it when you said walkability and that kind of stuff is also, again, going back to all the hills and stuff in New West and just wanting your kids to just walk places by themselves or take their bikes or whatever it is. It's just a lot easier to kind of walk out your door and wander over to Uptown or whatever it is and move along that way as kids. I think it's very walkable that way until they get to be about 18, 19, 20 years old. And then now all of a sudden from that age until they're 30, it must be like they have to live within 4 minutes of a SkyTrain and everything changes.
Well, if we jump back to condos for a second, the condos in Glenbrooke North, I think, were really hurt by a shift in what buyers want. Like about 10 years ago, Glenbrooke North, like all those little townhouses right by the middle school.
5 years ago.
I disagree. I think they took a hit. But either way, in the past, those areas were fantastic. Like when I started in real estate, there were lots of people who would say that specific area, I want to live there. Now when I show those, they're like, oh, these are great, but I'm not really close to a SkyTrain. Like people didn't care about the fact that they weren't close to a SkyTrain 5, 10, whatever the number is years ago.
Right.
I just feel like it wasn't that long ago. And it went where, because I haven't been doing this for 10 years yet.
Yeah.
And I'd get a listing in that area and I'd be like, well, slam dunk.
Totally.
Selling this thing.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants these, a downtown New West listing, maybe.
Yeah.
But Glenbrooke, like, absolutely, I'm selling this. And all of a sudden, there was just a massive shift in philosophy where you start bringing all the same people through who used to come in and just buy them in the first week. And they'd say, well,
yeah,
I want to be closer to SkyTrain.
Yeah. Potentially, it's more of a catchment thing for people buying those. If it's a younger family buying one of the townhouses.
But they feed into, don't they feed into Spencer and Glenbrooke North Middle?
I think that's what Jeremy's saying.
Yeah.
It's a good thing
It's
that they are appealing.
Oh, I see. I misunderstood what you're saying.
They don't necessarily. I mean, there's a new school now, Key Kite.
Yep.
I think it evolved for people who are listening and really trying to, if they're wondering. It was supposed to be pronounced like Kikite or Kikite. But it became this evolution of, I think a lot of people weren't quite sure how to say it, so they just said it like sort of really fast and under their breath, and it turned into like Kikite.
That's the new the new school in elementary school in downtown New West.
Yeah.
But yeah, people, if you were looking in that sort of price band of, attached townhouse condo, young family, whatever, that was a great spot because you're in the same catchment as your Queen's Park.
Yeah, but you couldn't sell a one bedroom. That became the problem. Was that the 2 bedrooms and the townhouses were appealing to families, but you couldn't convince anybody to buy a 1 bedroom in there.
Right.
Now that's improved, I think, over the last few years. It's kind of settled down. There was a real wave of
but there was
sort of
definitely
insistence.
a shift for a while. And I think it hasn't bounced back to where it was. That area is not quite as desirable as it was 5-10 years ago.
So we talked about sort of the blurred lines of Queen's Park to Glenbrooke North, which geographically are right next to each other, and there's not a whole lot different to them, but the street appeal is very different.
Yeah.
Right? And then the condos in Glenbrooke are so different from condos in downtown New West, so that's important to understand.
Yeah, and Matt has the only townhouse in Queen's Park.
Exclusivity.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's built in 1974. It's a big rectangle.
All that 1974 charm.
Heritage.
Okay, then we move. So our condo controversy from Glenbrooke to downtown, very different perspectives there. So if somebody is listening and they live in a condo in Glenbrooke right now, and they've lived there for 10 or more years, they may not know that there is a very different perception of the community today than it was 10 years ago. And that's sort of the exercise of what we're trying to do with the episode today, is to help people understand. Of course you love your neighborhood, right? And you know it really well. But people coming in, when it's time to sell, when it's time to market your home, there's a new perception on a lot of these areas in town.
There was a real shift of when I started in real estate, the buyers for those townhomes were younger than they are now. Like, people still buy them like crazy, but it seems to be an older demographic, because the young buyer, probably coming from Vancouver, wants to be at the SkyTrain like that.
Yeah.
Sorry for snapping at the listeners.
So the buyer for Glenbrooke condos is someone who drives.
Yeah, they're a driver.
And typically my experience is they're already invested in New West.
Yeah, you know what? That's very true. Most of the homes I've sold in there recently have been people moving from New West, staying in New West. Either they're downsizing or they're moving to something a little bigger, for sure. Yeah,
which historically has, typically that has been the case.
That used to be all the buyers.
Why would I leave New West?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is keeping us west of McBride Boulevard.
Okay.
Let's cross McBride.
Are we going to the Heights?
Sure.
Okay.
Which heights? So many heights.
Okay, so
so confusing if you're coming to New West.
Yeah, the important thing is that there were 2 sections of the Heights, right? There's Victory Heights, which is a little lower down, and this was all developed after World War II. And I believe veterans were sold the land for an incredible discount originally. I turned my phone on airplane mode, so I'm not going to Google it. But the reason it's called Victory Heights was specifically because of World War II. And I know there were veteran discounts. And then kind of higher up is Massey Heights.
What do you call that normally?
So people from New West lovingly referred to that as Snob Hill.
Circa.
Well, when were they originally done? Was it 60s or 70s? Yeah, 60s. So 60s. So, I mean, that was the place. Like, forget Queen's Park.
It was falling apart in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It was just old, run down.
Yeah. Massey Heights is where you wanted to be. That was like
the New West.
You had views of the whole city, which you still do. They're
the views
fantastic.
are spectacular there, yeah.
Yeah.
You're separate from all the riffraff in Queen's Park and downtown. At the time, that's an accurate statement.
With the worker bees.
The worker bees, you have your new mid-century modern
I mean,
house up in the Heights with views, and they can't get up there. It's a hill. It's harder for them.
Literally a class divide. Yeah.
And I mean, I think Massey Heights is still amazing, but people don't often come to New West saying, I need to see Massey Heights. You show them Massey Heights and they're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, I've never had somebody come into town and say, oh, I want to live in the Heights. And frankly, they have a hard time. I mentioned McBride as a dividing line intentionally because people who are new to the idea of New West, McBride is a dividing line.
Yeah.
For good reason. That's where all the traffic queues up to get on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choke point.
I like Massey Heights.
So
if they're the right mid-century modern home, atomic home, I'm buying that thing in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, well, you remember I tried to buy a house in Massey Heights.
But if you like that kind of, there's some really nice mid-century modern architecture in there. They're not all like that, but
it's my dad's number one favorite neighborhood in New West.
Yeah.
He loves Massey Heights, and with good reason. I mean, now,
but he was raised on Heights envy.
Yes, he grew up in Queens Park with a dad who couldn't afford the Heights.
One day I'll live up there.
So he's got to best his dad at some point.
There's not really the prestige isn't quite there, in this time.
Not at all.
No.
And that is not an insult to the Heights. It's just
it's just more of a well-kept secret at this point. Like, everybody who goes there loves it. Now, the walkability thing,
you don't have a lot of amenities,
does become the hurdle for some people.
Absolutely. You have a bus, no SkyTrain.
Yeah,
you're a lot more car dependent. But when they built them, I mean, that was the era of the
golden
era of cars.
Yeah,
right. That was that.
You can put both your cars in this carport.
So a couple of different heights for people coming into New West. Same but different. What your money is going to get you from one Massey Heights versus Victory Heights really just depends on the size of the house you find, how it's renovated. I mean, there's no price differential from one to the other. There's no significant lifestyle differential.
And that's a change, because I think there was. When New West 5-10 years ago was, and I think this is probably longer, but when there was a lot of people from New West buying New West, it was more, I prefer Massey over Victory.
There was more prestige to Massey.
Yeah. And I would think a lot of people living in the Heights now don't even know that there's a Massey and a Victory Heights.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, but that doesn't mean that you're not paying for a view versus not having a view in Victory Heights.
Yeah.
Right? You still have to pay for what you get.
You just maybe can't articulate it.
Yeah.
Do you find that people still call it the Heights?
Yes.
Yeah.
Blanket statement.
Yeah.
MLS is
the Heights.
And people who grew up in New West, I think, lovingly refer to it as Massey or Victory as almost a badge of honor. Like, I can, like...
Yeah. So, like, Queen's Park and Glenbrooke, they should probably merge those two.
Shut your dirty mouth.
Queensbrook.
That makes sense. They should probably just mix it because they're basically the same, right, Jeff?
I hate you.
I just wonder, do you wonder if Heights people think, like, I mean, Massey Heights, they still feel that way?
I'm not going to try to get in their head.
Yeah, Jeremy, you're just an agitator.
Okay, so we've talked.
We're not going to make it through. This might be a trilogy episode.
Oh my gosh! Look at the time.
No, we're not. Well, we can real quick. We got.
We have to finish going east.
You're gonna burn through Sapperton.
We're gonna do the west side,
Victoria
maybe
Hill,
part 3, but
and we still got
West
Queensborough.
End, Queensborough, Connaught.
Okay, so we're gonna have to do a third part.
We cannot finish this episode on time.
Yeah.
It is officially a trilogy.
His best dad joke for Father's Day coming up. Okay, so let's recap. We've talked about the detached stuff for the Heightses.
Yeah.
We need to finish on the eastern side here of New West. We can stay on the detached house and get into condos in Sapperton, or we can start by talking about the confusing Fraserview, Victoria Hill condo developments, and then close with Sapperton.
So
I think Sapperton should be the third.
Should we save Sapperton for the next part of this trilogy?
No, because it's too connected to the Heights.
Oh, but there's so much to talk
I just
about.
really like
There's
talking
new
about Sapperton.
West Group's building in there.
We got time. Okay, let's do Fraserview and Victoria Hill. Okay, so that's we know that's a high density condo development. Fraserview used to be the
penitentiary.
That was the penitentiary.
The penitentiary.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was sort of redone, and we got detached there houses that were done at sort of at the same time in the 80s.
Yep.
And then Jeff, you talked about the condos, right? So they built all these condos up Richmond Street from top to bottom that are all age restricted. And for people who are new to coming to New West and want to buy a townhouse, and they're like, hey, look at all these big townhouses over there on Richmond Street.
On paper, amazing.
Yeah, the townhouses on Jameson and the townhouses on Governor's Court, amazing family townhouses that you cannot have a family in.
Yeah, no kids allowed.
Yeah. And I can't count the amount of open houses I've held. And it's a huge hill to get up to Jameson, where you see somebody with kids walking up the hill and you're just shaking your head.
Waving your hand.
No, don't do it.
And if you live in one of these complexes and are listening, you need to change that age restriction.
Yeah, it's
You'll get a nice payday.
It's tough.
You will all forget the land assembly deal. You will all make more money on your properties will significantly increase in value if you remove that age restriction.
Bunny at Jameson is going to be so mad at you.
Sorry, Bunny. Bunny?
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of those people bought in because of the bylaws. It's a lifestyle that they wanted. But for our listeners who are looking at them, it's important to just know before you get too excited, right? So there's
whether it's right or wrong, it's just tough that
because
you've got this product that is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anywhere else, and no, you can't have it.
Retirees want 2-level townhouses.
3 in some cases.
3-level townhouses.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing.
Really
2,000 square foot.
Retirees do.
Some of these are 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Like they are big.
Yeah, they're like little
double
duplexes.
car garages.
Yeah.
Amazing properties.
Yeah, I want one. So that's been the area that's been known as Fraserview since the 80s. And Fraserview because it's a big steep hill, so everybody
has a Fraserview.
Kind of self-explanatory. And then the old Woodland site that is just east of McBride Boulevard, right at the south end there near the river.
Where Jeff lives.
Where Jeff lives.
Also known as now
Victoria Hill.
So we've got Fraserview built on the penitentiary, and also Woodlands built on the old insane asylum.
Well, the Woodland site, Victoria Hill, the Woodland site was the insane asylum.
New West is great at rebranding.
Yes.
So Ani did all of Victoria Hill in a master plan community. And I honestly think of it as its own sub area of New West.
Yeah. It should be. The amount of population in there is gigantic. And if you're listening and you're thinking of a place to open up a store,
like a bridal shop,
other than a bridal shop, like Victoria Hill, right now we have a sushi restaurant. And we have a little corner store that serves coffee. But it could, like Ani, when they marketed it, the idea was that there would be little shops in the bottoms of a lot of those buildings.
Master planned community.
And I think there's money to be had by people coming in there and opening up some little shops.
There's no commercial zoning in there, though.
I believe there's that.
Anyway. There's thousands of people in Victoria Hill. Yeah. It is sort of isolated in terms of there's 2 access points by vehicle. Yeah. You can't really even get out by foot going towards...
Well, there's an overpass into
Queen's Park, but going east.
Right.
Like, you can't go that way.
There's a place that you can jump the fence.
Right.
My son has found it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've wondered about that one.
So takes you right to the Jameson Towers.
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah, you're into their parking lot there. So you're isolated, and that's why I kind of think of it as its own neighborhood. You know, you really need to know exactly what you're getting into. You're not connected to anything else. If you want to go to shops or anything like that, you are leaving your little sort of...
At a minimum 15 minutes to SkyTrain by foot.
Yeah, it's about a 15-minute walk. That's right.
Yeah, but it has grown into a pretty fantastic community, and its proximity to Queen's Park, being right across the street, is fantastic. Mm-hmm. We're just across the street from each other, pretty much, Jeff.
Yeah, we're on opposite sides of the park.
Yeah, and so I walk up my street and take the dogs to the dog park, and I'd say more than 50% of the dog park users come from Victoria Hill.
Well, that's something you should know about Victoria Hill. There are so many dogs. And there's actually on the Victoria Hill community page, people working on like dog poop picking up volunteers.
Because I don't think a single building in Victoria Hill has a dog restriction.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think every one of them allows dogs.
Yeah.
So it creates a pretty high density of doggy owners.
Well, and they've got the great park kind of in the middle where the duck pond is. And I mean, anytime I come home, there's usually about 5 or 6 dog owners standing in the park talking to each other. Like, it's a dog
community. Who would volunteer to pick up dog poop?
There are 100% people who walk around Victoria Hill picking up garbage and dog poop. I can't remember her name. There's one lady who organizes it, and she's amazing.
Do they get some credit, some discounts at Victoria Sushi?
No, but it's also the type of community, like, I lent somebody a table the other day because somebody threw up in the group.
You'll never see that table
No,
again.
I got it back.
Wow.
Yeah, like, they've really managed to create a real little community feel. I mean, I've only been there since October, but I like it a lot.
So this is what was a bit confusing to me. Side note story, great community, but
yeah,
where it fits in the fabric of New West.
Yes.
Right. So my daughter's at Herbert Spencer Elementary.
Yeah.
And so proximity, where Jeff, you and I are very close to the school from Victoria Hill versus where I am. And so this is one of her classmates, and I'm talking to her at skating lessons, and she starts talking about how she's thinking of moving. So my ears are perking up, and I'd like to do a deal
Realtor
with her.
radar goes
on.
I'm
like, ooh, yeah, you're in the school district. This is good. I want to do this deal with you. And she says, oh, I'm in a townhouse in Glenbrooke, and I'm thinking of hiring this realtor. And she says the realtor's name, and she says, well, because they do quite a lot of business in my neighborhood, in my complex. And so I'm assuming she's talking about the Glenbrooke townhouses that we talked about earlier in today's episode.
Aha.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, that realtor doesn't do anything in there. I just did 3 deals in there, like, in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
What you should be talking to me. She's like, I haven't seen your name around, and all the rest of this. And a few months go by, and she ends up telling me, oh, yeah, no, I sold my place. This is my address, and this is the house I bought in Queen's Park.
Yeah.
And it turns out she was in your townhouse complex.
Yeah, the name of the townhouse complex is Glenbrooke, I believe.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Is that like the
that was a marketing sneaky
the Queen's Park townhouses in Queensborough?
Oh yeah, Queensborough has the Queen's Park development.
Yeah.
Clever.
So I wasn't sure if she thought she was actually in the neighborhood of Glenbrooke, or if, I guess maybe she was talking about the complex.
That's a fun
Now,
fact.
this is bad that I might be wrong, but I remember when I bought thinking, that's a weird name. So yeah, I think it was my complex she was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're called the Glenbrooke something.
Okay,
or
so
other.
that was a little bit of a marketing twist to get people to think that they were somewhere that other than
Victoria
where they
Hill's
were.
its own little batch. And I mean, and does Ginger Drive fall in Fraserview as well?
Yes.
So Ginger Drive is its whole own little community as well. And if people don't know, Ginger Drive is just across the street from Canada Games Pool. And these were actually co-ops originally, and some of them still are, but a bunch of them were sold off to be individual residents. And it's its own little community on top of that. Like, it's weird how much different little spots get packed into Fraserview that are really totally their own thing.
Yeah, totally. So if you're thinking of coming into New West and trying to identify the right neighborhood for you, and maybe it's based on price of what you have or lifestyle or whatever it is, this is where I think any community you want to go into, a real estate agent can help you understand this kind of stuff, right? Or just listen to our shows.
I wish there was a good way to find a real estate agent that you knew and you liked. I can't imagine how you would do that.
My email address is
feedback@morealestateshow.com.
We'll have a rock, paper, scissors war to figure out who gets the client.
Yeah.
Okay, last for today.
Do we want to try and get into Sapperton, or do we want to save Sapperton?
Save it.
Oh, okay.
Sapperton's going to be a big topic.
It is. We got so close, though. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay.
Tune in next week.
Okay, so today, if you do listen to this within the first few days of it launching, and I know a lot of you do, and thank you, and if you have any feedback for us and how maybe we can improve, or if there's more things you want us to touch on with the neighborhoods we have left, we're going to be talking about Sapperton, and then we're going to get to the west side of New West, so Moody Park, West End, and Connaught Heights, and then we're going to cross the river. We'll talk about Queensborough.
Yeah, well, we don't mind revisiting if we want to recap something, if a question does come up.
Yeah, if you think we've glossed over something, or if you think we were completely wrong on something, call us out.
Yeah, if you loved Jeremy's idea, or you hated the idea of merging Glenbrooke North and Queensbrook, feel free to let Jeremy know at feedback@morealestateshow.com. But this will not be next week. We're going to have to do this 2 weeks from now.
So if you're listening to this a week from now, you can still give us your feedback.
Yeah. So for next week, I think we've got something pretty cool going on. This is an episode that if you ever thought about being a realtor, or if you are a realtor and you're kind of just getting started or you're struggling, we have a very special guest coming on. His name is Keith Cornies. He owns 2 RE/MAX offices, and he is a real estate coach. So if you have questions for Keith, please send them to us at feedback@morealestateshow.com. We're going to get into basically, so if you want to be a realtor, what do you need to know? How do you get started? What things should you do? What things are a waste of time? I think it's going to be a really cool episode.
It's going to be a great episode. And even if you're not into being into a realtor as a profession, Keith is somebody who has just helped me as a real estate coach, more just coaching you through just managing and organizing your life.
I guarantee you he won't stick to just real estate.
No, it's about, he says it all the time. I mean, he's got a couple of his key lines, and I won't steal all of them, but living your best life. And that's not just about when you go to work. And he's done a lot for me to just feel satisfied in everything I do that's outside of work. So if that's something you're interested in and you want to hear it, it's not just about the real estate profession. You probably still get a lot out of it if you want to listen.
We've all been coached by him, and it's been huge benefit to all of us. Real estate related, personal, life related. So
excited to have Keith on next week. So if you think of any questions, or if you want to look him up, his coaching business is AIM Coaching.
AIM Coaching.
Yep. Achieve Individual Mastery.
.com.
Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today. If you want to make sure that you get all the episodes and keep up to date with us, please think about subscribing. And if you've been enjoying the show, we would love it if you'd leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This really helps us find new listeners. And I think that's going to do it for today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Part 3, hey guys.
The trilogy.
Oh, no, it's a different... Oh, no, wait, what's the bumper that I play? No, the outro bumper is just music. Like, I don't have any other bumpers to play.
So we'll just go into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, ba-dee-ba-doo, bum, 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 ba-dee-ba-doo. I have lots of things to say today. I have a story about the fire department visiting me. I have a story about eating a temporary crown. Okay. Not good. But I also think you should explain what a HIAC is.
What a HIAC is?
Since it's the new
Since
West.
We're doing a new West.
Part 2. I mean, my stories, I can sum them up really quickly if you want, and then we can talk about HIACs.
Sure. Go for it.
How long is this episode going to be?
This is the long one. I started my barbecue for the first time in in 8 months or whatever. Went upstairs to grab some meat from the fridge. Came down and had 6 New Westminster's finest firefighters in my little courtyard garden area.
From the time you started the barbecue... You went downstairs, got the meat, and came back.
And
he just had to make one stop on the way.
Did you?
Classic.
No,
I went up. It's a charcoal barbecue, so I use like a little chimney, use a little bit of paper.
Did you light your townhouse on fire?
No.
Why was the fire department there?
The fire department was there because we have a density issue, apparently, and they built my townhouse complex really close to an apartment building. And
that's normal.
And so
the fire department had to
So
come.
when I fire up my charcoal chimney, there's a little bit of smoke involved.
Yeah.
And typically the wind is blowing that smoke directly at the apartment building. So you were smoking
building. Like right into somebody's...
I was smoking the crap out of them.
Was it a warm evening?
Their windows were, you can start hearing people's windows. You start hearing the sliding doors.
Yeah.
Like a 80s wood frame building. I gotta feed my family.
I really hope there's somebody listening to this.
That's you.
Yeah, totally.
You're that guy.
They make propane barbecues, Jeremy.
It just tastes better with the charcoal. Anyways, came down, firefighters. What's going on? Sorry, someone reported that you were having a backyard fire, which you were not allowed to do in New West, apparently. But it actually was just barbecuing. Was it? So we're good? It's like, yeah, no, that's totally fine what you're doing. Totally inconvenient and annoying for the condo people. And if you're listening, I'm so sorry.
He'll be barbecuing again this Sunday.
Steak's not going to grill itself.
I think you should make everyone in that building steak.
I should.
Yeah. Just one bite each.
I should mail them each a piece of steak.
Yeah.
As like a thank you.
Yeah. Or sorry, really.
Sorry. Here's your piece of steak.
Maybe a thank you for accepting your apology.
Thank you for... I got all these thank you cards I printed.
It's called the presumptive apology.
Thanks for being great neighbors.
And you ate a crown?
Oh, and I think I talked about the dentist maybe last episode. This crown keeps falling out, the temporary crown.
Oh, I hate this story.
And I was eating, and I'm like, wow, that tooth's missing. And I ate it. Apparently it happens more frequently than you would think.
That's gross.
That's really gross.
Is it grosser than the story you told 2 episodes ago?
Who?
You?
Me? I think so.
This is the inappropriate story hour. Anyways, not fishing it out for those of you who are probably curious. What's he going to do?
Temporary crown. It's just temporary.
It's gone, and I get the new one tomorrow, Friday. Wow. If you're listening to this, tomorrow.
Can you feel that it's missing?
Oh yeah, there's like a nubbin.
Yeah.
You see that? For all of you watching at home?
Yeah, that's a technical.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
Oh yeah.
You're like missing a tooth.
I'm missing a tooth.
Oh,
so
wow.
There's not going to be any videos from us this week.
Is it super sensitive? Like if you touch it?
No, because it was root canal. So you don't feel it. I don't feel a thing. Anyways, tell us about Hayaks.
I don't even know if I can now. That, I hate teeth.
Teeth are...
You know what? We're going really late. Let's talk about what a Hayak is on our next New West... on part 3
in the
of a New West Side story.
They call that a tease.
That is a tease.
Thanks.